The Eagles are having a parade, and we're already trying to figure out who's going to dethrone them. We'll talk about that today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open, and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You heard the lady. She said it's your team every day. It is. Here on Locked On NFL, we thank you for making us your first listen. Second half of a double dose of Locked On NFL that comes your way each and every day. You are now in the barbershop, and I'm with my brother from another mother, my man, Matt Williamson, and we're going to break it down for you here today on Locked On NFL like we always do. And you can find the podcast wherever you listen or watch podcasts. Make sure you tap into that location. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Shout out to the everydayers and those who want to be. All you got to do is just show up every day, and we hope you enjoy the show. Now, here's what Matt and I are going to go over today. We're going to end the show by talking about the Browns and the Giants quarterback dilemma. It might not have to be a dilemma if they don't want it to be, because both of them are picking in the top 5. And there might be a player there, or do they have other plans? Speaking of quarterbacks, New Orleans has a new head coach who sounds non-committal to Derek Carr. Doesn't mean he won't start. Doesn't mean he's not going to be the guy. I think he wants to take a look-see and come in there and see if he has a good feel for Derek Carr. But we're going to start the show with who can dethrone Philly next year. You know what, man? We just don't let people enjoy their food, man. They just got the championship. They probably having a parade right now in Philly as we're recording, and already here we are looking for a team that could probably beat them. I'll start with this. The Rams were very, very close in the divisional round. That was a really good game in bad weather that the Rams are less used to than the Eagles. We saw them dominate Kansas City so bad. It might be an overreaction for us to sit here and think, well, damn, they're young and they're ready to go. That's going to be a problem for a long time. I happen to think, though, that maybe Detroit and another team would have given them a better game on Sunday than Kansas City.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I don't think we should pencil in the Eagles as back-to-back champs or anything at this point. They were really impressive. They have a great roster. I love the makeup of the organization all the way down. But the Lions can hang. I have no doubt in my mind. We talked about, you mentioned that the Eagles are having a parade as we speak, and, they have a target on their chest already. Well, nobody knows what that feeling is like more than Kansas City. I'm not writing them off going forward either. They looked terrible a couple Sundays ago or whatever, but they're not going away anytime soon. I think Buffalo's still in the hunt. But I was asked the other day, on that Sunday, that Super Bowl Sunday, of the 31 teams, who do you think the Eagles would have liked to see the least? And I immediately said the Ravens.
Yep.
Just because the physicality, the run game, the ball control, quarterback, I think the Ravens would be the worst matchup for the Eagles.
I do too. And you know what? Somebody might agree with you. On the squad show, they discussed this. We'll talk about this, and then we'll also talk about how chippy the Detroit Lions were on Radio Row. Dude saying they're not even going to watch the game. We'll talk about that too. But listen, here's about a 1:50 clip. I didn't clip it too small because I wanted you to hear the entire crux of the conversation.
The Philadelphia Eagles made pretty quick work of the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59, got their big win, second Lombardi trophy here in recent memory. But the conversation we want to have coming into this week and coming into everybody's offseason, now that every team is in the offseason, is which teams are the closest to competing with Philadelphia. And I actually want to go to Peter Bukowski first, because I love your takes on a lot of these things. But I want to give you Dak Prescott's take first, and I figure Packers, Cowboys, why not? Let's do it. Dak Prescott said, quote, "I feel like that's the Dallas Cowboys, competed with the Eagles and beat them for the most part when we've played them. I don't want to say check the record, as in Jameis Winston telling you to check the stat sheet. James knows what I'm talking about. When the other guy is holding the trophy, right? So credit to them. They've earned it, and they deserve it by all means. But, yeah, we're very close," end quote. Peter Bukowski, how close are the Dallas Cowboys?
We're talking about the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like, not a different – the last time these two teams played, Philadelphia won 41-7. The time before that, Philadelphia won 34-6. What are they close? Now I understand backup quarterbacks, but go back to last year. The Eagles handled those matchups too. So like, what are we talking about? I think, and this will make one person on this stream happy. I think there is one AFC team this year that had a good shot, and it was the Ravens, and they were just not able to get there. And I talked to Kevin about it after that game that we saw. What week was that, Kevin? When those two teams squared off?
13.
Yeah,
no, 13.
That's super important. But that was the team where I was like, once Philadelphia beat that team, I was kind of like, I don't know if Baltimore can't do it. I don't know if anyone's going to beat this team.
I don't know of any other team whose quarterback is a great player, where it's more polarizing, where people think that, okay, he doesn't have a clutch gene, he can't get them over the hump. But then in the very next voice, if you have the bully and you want the bully beaten, and the bully before the Eagles, it was the Chiefs. Who do you want to send in there? And then those same people will say Baltimore. It's the most amazing thing in the world. It's like, nah, he ain't clutch. But then they go, okay, you got to go fight this dude in this alley. Who you want? Oh, yeah, give me him and the Ravens. It's the funniest thing in the world to me. But I think I agree with both of you. I think Baltimore would have given anybody the biggest headache that day.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like up-and-coming teams that could build themselves into that over the next couple months. And I'm struggling, What if the Packers landed Myles Garrett?
Yeah.
Something like that, or a number one receiver. I still don't know if they're physical enough at both lines of scrimmage. I don't think Washington is banging on the door quite yet, although that they're, have a promising future. Cincinnati's got too many holes. I only mention them because they have a quarterback. I mean, I think the Chargers are going that direction, but just aren't close to what the Eagles roster is at this point. It's hard to come up with teams, Wig.
It is hard to come up with teams. I'll tell you what, though, I noticed, though, in these conversations that we've had this past season, it was, you got Detroit. Yeah, you got Minnesota, but they got Sam Darnold. Packers are pretty good. And then the Eagles, but they play in a bad division. That's all we heard. And then we heard all of the heat was over in the AFC. All of the big dogs,
quarterbacks,
the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo, Cincinnati when they're on, and and of course Kansas City. I think that's starting to turn a little bit, looking at the way this offseason is. What the Eagles actually did was similar to a team in college that plays whoever wins the SEC championship. They play them in the championship game. It's like what Clemson did. No, we're going to beat them, because everybody thought that they were just this team from the other conference that wasn't Detroit. But then it turns out they come in there and they bully the hell out of Kansas City. I think if they played the Chiefs 10 times, they do the same thing. So now I think it's starting to switch. I think people are looking at Washington. I think people are looking at the Rams, who played them extremely tough and was a bad pass away from probably keeping the Eagles from going to the Super Bowl. They're looking at those teams now going, those teams aren't that bad. But I tell you one team, they mentioned this, Dallas. They shouldn't talk. If I was Dak, if I was Michael Parsons, I'd probably retire from podcasting. I'm telling you, man, the Dallas Cowboys talk too much and should not even be a part of this conversation.
No, they are not in that class to me. I mean, they had a tough year, and I'd love to see Dak for 17 games and get Parsons locked up, but I'm not impressed with their off seasons and their dedication to winning or the way that they've handled their roster. They're not in the same. They should not be in this conversation. I 100% agree.
The only thing Dak needs to be saying is, I need to play just like Jalen Hurts, because I have the physical ability to do it. I'm built like that. I can throw the ball just as good as he does, but now I need to learn how to think like he does. And I'm not saying he doesn't read defenses on. I just think he puts too much pressure on himself, where the other kid lets everything come to him and it just rolls right off of his back. Speaking of rolling off of the back, New Orleans, that city recovered from something we will never, ever forget, to put on a really, really good weekend, an entire week for the Super Bowl. So we want to thank them. Shout out to Ross Jackson and everyone in the New Orleans media for how they conducted themselves in the Super Bowl. But they got some other stuff now. They got a Super Bowl winning coach in Kellen Moore. He's their new head coach, who may not be as committed to their quarterback as some might think. We'll discuss that here and more on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's so many ways that you can play FanDuel, but there's no better place than to play FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can go online or you can get the app. Either one, man. It does not matter, because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can always stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting for me personally. And I never feel like I'm missing my chance to get me some of that Skrilla. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Rolling along here on Locked On NFL, where it's your team every day. New Orleans got a new coach in Kellen Moore. Now, I'll be fully transparent. When the Jaguars were having their process, I wasn't big on them hiring Kellen Moore because I didn't. Now that he has this in his he has this championship in his gumbo, he looks a whole lot better than he did when I was thinking about the dude that left Dallas and the dude that left the Chargers. He looks a whole lot better now, and he's one of the heroes, along with Vic Fangio, who finally got his championship. When he goes to New Orleans, though, he's going to have to deal with them being a gazillion dollars over the salary cap.
Oh.
And he's stuck with Derek Carr as his quarterback. What do you think about that situation? I don't believe in guys turning down jobs, but that one, man, with the team that he left, I might have said, I can wait till next year. And then there's Bobby Slowick, but I don't think he was going to have that issue.
So I do think, say what you want about the Saints, I do think they are patient, and this isn't the one and done. I think they'll stick with them for several years through this rebuild. But to jump ahead, I did a very deep dive, the best I can. I am not a salary cap expert, but I did a deep dive on the Browns and Saints cap situation.
Yeah.
And rarely do I think a team should sell everything they possibly have and try to win 0 games. But I think these two teams should sell everything they possibly have and try to win 0 games. It is so bad cap-wise. And, here's the one example. I mean, they've got about $40 million in dead cap tied up in Andres Pete, Marcus May, and Michael Thomas. I mean, guys that are long gone. All their salary caps guys, or all their contract situations don't get any better unless you cut them June 1st. And they don't even have guys that they can sell off. Like if they sell Carr, it hurts their cap unless it's after June 1st. I mean, the way these salaries are structured is so bad. And they're the oldest team in the league. I mean, I love Demario Davis and the Honey Badger and Cameron Jordan and these dudes, but their best days are long behind, and their massive salary cap hits. I mean, I think this and the Browns, because of the Watson thing, are as hopeless a situation as you can get. And it amazed me right around the trade deadline last year, instead of trading Alvin Kamara to the Chiefs or somebody like that, they extended him and made him more of a cap hit. I don't understand the vision at all. And I really think they might have to trade Chris Olave just to pick up $8 million in cap space so they can get under. They don't really even have guys that they can deal to get under. So they're probably going to put, max the credit cards out more. Yeah, I just think it's bad, man. Really bad.
Ross told me they're going to figure it out. He tells me every year, Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints, he tells me every year that the Saints going to figure it out, and they are the Houdini of getting out of these type of things. But see, to me, all Houdini did was charge that stuff to somebody else. And now he's gone.
Yeah.
And now the next magician is like, what am I going to do with this mess? That's how he was able to do it. But listen, Ross has a clip here from Locked On Saints where he talks about this and the non-committal aspect of Derek Carr. He's not saying that Derek Carr won't be the starter, but there's even some audio and some video here from from the new coach, Kellen Moore. Check this out.
New Orleans Saints' new head coach, Kellen Moore, was introduced in his introductory press conference as the team's new head coach, and in doing so, was given a couple of opportunities to commit to Derek Carr, explicitly asked on a couple of different occasions about whether or not Derek Carr will be the week 1 starter in New Orleans, and Kellen Moore did not give a fully committed answer when it came to that very situation.
Derek's a tremendous quarterback in this league. I've had so much respect for him, the journey that he's been on. He's a starter in this league. He's a premier player in this league. He's had a great journey, obviously going from Fresno State to the Raiders and now here. Really excited to team up with him and go through this process. And so just like any player on this roster, I just got here a few days ago, and I'm excited to go through this journey with all of them.
Moore was given the opportunity to answer that question again by Mike Triplett from over at NewOrleans.football. And again, you heard a lack of commitment from Kellen Moore around the quarterback, explicitly not stating that he will be the starter going into 2025, and that instead he's excited to go through the process with Derek Carr, at which time I followed up with another question about what exactly the process was, for what he effectively described was meeting the players and building out the roster. Now, let me be clear. A lack of commitment doesn't necessarily mean a bad outlook for Derek Carr or any type of guarantee that Derek Carr will not be the starting quarterback in 2025.
I like it. And the reason why I like it, first I got to tell you what it is. What it is you're not confirming or denying anything. Not at your press conference. That's not what we're going to do, because what it tells me more than anything is he is just not going to make it a practice of answering questions from the hip and telling people stuff that they don't need to know. It's a need-to-know basis. Doug Peterson could have benefited a lot from that here in Jacksonville, and he said something a couple of years ago that started about a year and a half worth of worthless banter to me about play calling when that wasn't even the issue for the team amongst the fans. But I like the fact that he is setting a precedence like, look, if I tell you right now how I feel, then you're going to think I'm going to tell you how I feel about everything from here on out. And that's what I take from it.
Great point. I mean, being at the podium as a head coach is an art, and it is something that is a learned skill. And what would he have to gain to come in and say, I just showed up here? Frankly, we know Mickey Loomis is the one making these decisions more than anyone. First of all, he's a coach the players. He's not going to come in and be like, yeah, we're getting rid of Carr. He stinks. We don't have any cap space. We're going to dump him. We're not going to win any games this year. I mean, you can't do that. I mean, that's not how this works. We know better than that.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to be the quarterback, though.
You don't? Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah, they might as well go with a young guy, or, who knows, man. Maybe they pick up somebody in the second round. But the most interesting thing to me with them is how in the hell are they going to pull this off? We got to watch it, man. I'm telling you.
I know.
We're going to be sitting here, and I know they are the greatest. They are the greatest of at least making it appear that they are managing these situations real good. It's almost like I grew up watching Good Times, right? In Florida, and James Evans we were poor when I was little. They were the poorest people I ever seen in my life, right? So the thing is they always seem to manage that little bit. That's like calling them financial wizards. No, they ain't financial wizards. Right. They just know they know how to survive that.
They survived, yeah.
Right? And that's what the Saints are. So see, Ross, I just compared the Saints to James and Florida Evans. How about that? You only get that on Locked On NFL, by the way. But look, we're going to talk about two. You mentioned one of them. One of them is the Browns. Oh, boy. Talk about quarterback quandary.
Really bad situation.
The Browns and the New York Giants. We'll talk about both of those clubs and what they should do this offseason with their top 5 picks. We'll get to that and more here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Football season may be over, but basketball is in full swing, and there's no better way to stay in the game than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you just pick more or less on at least 2-player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Here's an example, right? This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum to do more than 29 points because he is on an absolute tear, and he's second, in my opinion, to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the MVP at the All-Star break. Prize Picks is quick and easy. You can set up your lineup, and in less than 60 seconds, it'll be over. And all you got to do is just sit there and watch. And the fast and secure withdrawals mean I get my winnings in as little as 15 minutes. Plus, I love their weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even better value. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, third final segment here on Locked On NFL on a Friday. Of course, my man Matt Williamson of at Williamson NFL and of the Peacock and Williamson podcast. And every chance I get, I say he's one of the dudes that started Locked On NFL. So we are always grateful to have my guy here, former scout with the Pittsburgh Steelers and still in the building over there, and has a wealth of information for you. So we're going to talk right now about the NFC North. Matt knows about the whole league, but he really knows about that team. What is that? Is that 80 or 76? Which one of those highways connects Pittsburgh to Cleveland? I know Youngstown is like right in the middle.
That's not my specialty, Wade.
Yeah.
Talk about things that aren't football. I don't know anything.
Yeah, you ain't driving around here, right?
I used to quite a bit, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, they're not very far apart, and they are bitter rivals. Mm-hmm. And I know people in Pittsburgh ain't that mad that Cleveland's struggling right now, but they are struggling pretty bad. I tell you who's not struggling though. That's Locked On Browns, man. I want you to check what they have to say over at Locked On Browns about Cleveland in this offseason.
I have gone back and forth with you on what the Browns' options are at the number 2 overall pick that they have at their disposal. There are plenty of reasons and arguments to be made why they should take a quarterback, why they should maybe trade back, why they should take somebody else, maybe an Abdul Carter, for example, who is one of the more highly rated players in this class just in general. I have come to the conclusion, though, that I think there's only 2 real options for this team. They either take a quarterback at number 2 because they believe in their heart of hearts that one of these top guys, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, we know the names at this point, truly can be like a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL and be the quarterback that they are looking for, or they trade back, as I've talked about before, and accumulate as many picks as possible to set yourself up for, future success, future team building, whether it's drafting guys this year or next year. That's it. Those are the only real 2 options in my mind. And let me explain, because there's going to be plenty of people who jump down my throat on this and jump in the comments and say, what are you talking about? If Abdul Carter's there too, you just take Abdul Carter. Here's the thing though. If the Browns become like, if you don't become sold on a quarterback, if you're the Browns, you're basically saying like, okay, we are more than a quarterback away in that instance. And knowing that quarterbacks go at such a high value, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't float the pick out there in trade talks and try to move off that spot and get some picks in return and move further back in the draft. Because like if the Browns, if they don't take a quarterback, then they're essentially pivoting to, all right, we're going to address other needs.
Spencer German is correct. He does a real good job over at Locked On Browns. He is absolutely correct when it comes to Cleveland. The other thing that he's correct, if you can feel the quandary that he's in talking about this, that is a mess too, just like the one that we described in New Orleans. But here's why I think quarterback is a good shot for him. It would be one thing if Deshaun Watson was healthy. He's not. He's not durable. He's always banged up. I think he tore an Achilles or something again. And there's no reason to believe that he's going to be ready to play come the beginning of the year. So now you get a quarterback on a rookie deal, even though it's a high priority resource, you're still not paying him the way like the Rams had to pay Sam Bradford. So you're not allocating all of those funds to one room when you combine it with his money. If you have a player that isn't living up to the contract that you can't get out of, the best thing you can do is have another player who's good and who doesn't cost you a bunch of money.
So again, like the Saints, these are the last 2 teams I'd want to be the GM of right now. I think they're in a dismal situation. And I think Garrett's going to go. And I think just to get cap compliant because of the Watson deal, they're not going to have guys like Wyatt Teller or Conklin, guys that are making good money. A lot of those dudes are going to have to be elsewhere. They already shipped Amari Cooper out. And the problem is, first of all, if you adore one of those quarterbacks, not like Spencer said, I think he could be a starter. I mean, I think he could be awesome. Well, then you take him. But to me, that's next year's project because you're going to be terrible. I need to build an infrastructure. And here's the deal, Wig. I mean, we know that the cap space of the Watson deal is brutal. I mean, he's like a $70 million cap hit or something. But these last 3 drafts, the Browns' first pick last year was 54th overall. Their first pick in 2023 was 74th overall. In 2022, it was 68th overall. They have like no good young players on rookie deals because they traded all those picks away. So it's going to be dark times for a while. And if you throw Shedeur Sanders in that situation, I think you have a really good chance of ruining them, or whoever the quarterback is.
You very well could be right. And here's the other thing about trading back. You got to find somebody that wants to come up for something.
Yeah,
and,
right. In this draft, I don't know.
That doesn't look like, with all due respect, some of these guys may turn out, but I'm just talking about simply for draft, because I actually think both guys that play for Ohio State should be left tackles. The Josh Simmons, who got hurt, and the kid who played left guard, Dante Jackson, who actually went out to left tackle. I think they're both left tackles in the league. So I'm not saying that there won't be left tackles in this draft that end up being perennial all pros. What I'm saying is for the draft's sake, there aren't people that folks are willing to come up and trade for. I think the best all-around player is probably Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, but I don't think either one of them is somebody that people are giving you a Will Anderson type ransom that, Arizona ended up getting from the Houston Texans. And there's no player like Will Anderson for the Houston Texans to have traded up for. There's nobody like that. Maybe Abdul Carter, but you just got to wonder who's going to actually trade up for to give away a whole bunch of draft picks in this particular draft.
Wait, real quick, though. I mentioned those last 3 drafts, that no one's had less draft capital over that 3-year stretch than Cleveland. It's not even close. But as it stands right now, the Browns have the most draft capital in this class. So, and they haven't even traded Garrett yet. I mean, this could be the turning point of the franchise of, we're going to eat our Wheaties, we're going to eat our vegetables, and now we can actually start drafting an infrastructure again,
No doubt about it. Somebody else that needs to think about this and have this conversation is the New York Giants. And I think a lot of this is going to be predicated on, well, how much room does Brian Daboll really have? And the understanding that how much room, how much wiggle room, how much patience are they going to show with him? Did they show patience with him with Daniel Jones? Did they tell him to do that situation, or was he convinced that he could turn Daniel Jones into something? That's what they have to wonder. For him, it's almost like he's a lame duck in this situation, and you got to win. But sometimes winning doesn't mean in the draft you go out and get the guy that can help you win the most games. People just don't use the draft to build their team for the season that's coming. They use the draft to build for their team that in the future. So listen to Patricia Traynor as she asks the question and talks about what the New York Giants should do.
What makes the best sense for the Giants, given the state of this quarterback class, given the state of the free agents class? What would you do at quarterback if you had your druthers?
If it was just up to me and my back was not up against the wall and I was guaranteed that I would have a job beyond the 2025 season, I probably would pass on quarterback at number 3 overall. And I know that sounds crazy because it's probably one of the biggest holes in the NFL is the Giants quarterback room right now. They don't have anybody on the roster, let alone a veteran that can compete with a rookie. But with that said, these guys, their backs are up against the wall. They're going to have to show something. And this is why I go back and forth. Are you going to rely on a rookie and rush him into action? Or can you kind of parlay this a little bit with a veteran that can at least get the season off the ground? And maybe you do run into the next version of Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, a former failed face of the franchise that gets revitalized in a new system and in a new environment. I mean, that has to be in the back of their mind, because you remember what Brian Daboll said after that win against the Colts is, hey, it's amazing what happens when we have a quarterback that gets the job done, a veteran quarterback that gets the job done. You're going to have a few guys available. So to me, you go after a veteran at some point to help stabilize the ship and increase the floor, raise the floor of this offense. But you have to draft a quarterback at some point. It just doesn't have to be at 3.
I agree with him. And there may be some Jackson Dart love at the top of the second round or at the end of the first if teams want to go up and take that chance. but it's a bad situation to be in, man, when
Yeah.
the coach has to win and they don't have a quarterback.
Exactly. I mean, you're kind of setting up your coach and Joe Shane as well, in the front office to fail. I mean, I would love to see what Daboll could do with Ward, to be honest. I mean, he's had some athletic quarterbacks. I'm not saying he's Josh Allen, but I would love to see that for a couple years. But I feel like the organization is telling them, you better come away with this draft with the quarterback and you better hit. And then you're taking the 15th best player with the 3rd pick, and then that's just bad business. You know what I mean?
It is bad business, man. Positional value rules today. Maybe they could call New Orleans and get Derek Carr.
I think that's a possible landing spot for him. They've been linked to Stafford. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, all of that stuff. I tell you what, though, you might not want to be those two teams, but you do want to listen to one of these two shows or both. Locked on NFL twice a day. Tyler rolling in the morning like a double shot of espresso, and then me hanging out at the barbershop talking about good times and highways in Ohio. How about that? All right, man, take care. Y'all have a good weekend. For Matt Williamson, Tony Wiggins, make sure you check out Locked on NFL wherever you get your podcast. We'll be here all the time because it's your team every day.